Vulnerability without discernment is just exposure. But vulnerability with discernment creates connection. Hi, and welcome back to Simply 1% with Meredith and Wendolyn. We hope that you've enjoyed our podcast so far. Quick invite before we dive in. We've started a Facebook group. We would love for you to join. It's going to be a great place for us to have dialogue with you, give us ideas, maybe learn a little bit about each other. So today, we're going to be talking about vulnerability. Basically being naked and afraid, what it is, what it isn't, and how to practice it with discernment. What we've learned, I think, in coaching and therapy is we really want to get to that point of having discernment, right? And it's through knowing who your audience is, knowing how to deliver information, your feelings, and really choosing the right time to communicate. So have you ever shared something personal and immediately thought, oh no, why did I say that? If you heard our first episode, you'll know that happens to us quite often. But in this way, it's, did I really say that? Did I say too much? Did I leave myself exposed? Am I now in an unsafe place? Other times, the very same kind of sharing creates closeness, though, and it has a wonderful impact and growth in a relationship. So when do we use our value, right? When do we use our valuable words? And when do we know the difference? When do we know when to share something that feels safe and it's the right place and time? And how do we evaluate when maybe I don't need to say that much? Okay, so let's talk about what vulnerability is and isn't. I think that's a good place to start. What do you think?
Yeah, I do think that's a good place to start because, like we were saying, in our first episode, or one of the episodes we did about oversharing, right? That's not necessarily what we're talking about. We're talking about getting into those deep areas of our lives that are sacred.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
There is.
That we're not talking about saying the wrong thing and be like, I'm an idiot when I walk away from a conversation. Right. It's oh, now I'm exposed. There's a huge difference in what we're talking about. Yeah.
It's about having the courage to say something and not knowing necessarily how it's going to land. So when we are deciding to share ourselves with somebody in any of our developmental areas, right? Our mind, our spirit, our anything like that, it is about not knowing how it's going to land. Yeah. Let's just say. And so can we prepare ourselves for a situation where we might have to say the hard thing, or we might want to share something that's really wonderful? We don't know how it's going to be received, but can we prepare our own selves, right? Where we are validating ourselves, where our vulnerability is worth it. And it doesn't necessarily matter how the person receives it.
Right. Like this week when I had to post on Facebook for the first time a video of myself.
That's a great example.
It's a great example. Listen, just so you understand, when you saw that video of me, when one, took everything inside me to push post. Number two, immediately after pushing that, I went, I'm naked. I am naked and I'm afraid. I'm naked and afraid at this very moment. And so I called Meredith. I was like, I'm naked. And she was like, what do you mean? And I told her I posted a video of myself. Like I just felt sick. But this is the thing. I knew some people might watch it and go, oh, that's Wendolyn for you. Some people might watch it and go, oh, cool. Some people might watch it and go, she's stupid. And that's fine. Because you know what?
Doubtful.
But the thing is, I had to be okay with however it was taken. Whatever the response was going to be, I had to be okay with it.
Yes.
Yeah. That's just how that is.
It is. It is sometimes. So before we move on to what it is and what it isn't, think about one of those moments that you have had yourself. We've all had them. It could be now as an adult. It could be one of those moments that you go back to as a child. That we have had those that have left us exposed in the way of, oh, I wish that I would have reserved that maybe for someone else. Or if I could go back and do that again, I would talk to that person instead, because I know that I could have made that connection.
Yeah.
That person was safe. I think this happens a lot when we're looking for our person. It happens a lot in romantic relationships, right? Revealing too much in the beginning because I want to be vulnerable. But vulnerability is not oversharing. We can do that pretty easily, especially with ADD.
Oh,
That's
please.
for sure.
Yeah, usually what I'm sharing in a conversation where I overshare is things that it really isn't of importance, right? It's not like something that I hold valuable. It's something that I'm nervous, so I'm just sharing things that probably nobody needs to ever know.
Well,
they're not the valuable things. And we talk about this with our clients, right? We say, don't throw your pearls to pigs. We talk about that. It's the things that you hold value that are valuable to you, and you are giving them to somebody that doesn't know the value of it.
Absolutely.
And so I say that quite often to my clients, right? Don't throw your pearls to pigs. That person is just, they don't know the value of that, the weight of it. So keep that.
Mm-hmm.
Be careful who you give those pieces to, those things of value to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So yeah, the oversharing part of it, right? Like, what is our value? How much do we keep? And what do we share? And how do we know that person will treat it with care or respect? We don't always know.
Mm-mm.
And we know that it's a risk sometimes, but many times that risk can be worth it. Another thing that it's not is trauma dumping. Okay, so I go on a first date and I'm sharing everything. Well, I just want them to know everything about me so that they can know what they're getting into. I just want to start with all trauma dumping, oversharing. You think it's a form of connecting with someone and really showing yourself and your authenticity. There is some truth to that, but ultimately it goes back to who is your audience. You don't know that person yet. So we need to keep it light in the beginning of our relationships, even at work. How much do we tell our boss for the reason we're not coming to work that day? What are they going to do with that information? Sometimes it can be connecting and you want that understanding, and sometimes they don't need to know. I err on the side of caution of people don't need to know. Really.
Right.
That really, we don't have to over explain ourselves to people. What is somebody going to do with this information? That is a wonderful question to ask yourself before you are talking about something that might feel uncomfortable. So it's not oversharing. It's not trauma dumping. It's not blurting things out in the heat of the moment. It's not, I am so angry, I'm just going to share this thing with you. What's really angering me in a way of just blurting it out. Because from that, it usually doesn't create a connection, let's just say.
Right.
So what vulnerability is about connection. It's about bringing you closer to someone that is important in your life to move it forward. And that doesn't mean just romantic. That means parent, child. It does mean somebody at work. Whatever's going to create more connection, meaningful connection with a person, that is when we jump into our vulnerability. So again, it's courage. It's the choice to risk exposure. It's not knowing how it will land and not needing the other person's validation, because within ourselves, we know that it was important to say. So it's not about the applause or the comfort or approval. There are a lot of times we're not going to get that right away. So when you guys hear the word vulnerability, what comes to mind? Do you picture courage? Do you picture weakness? Just notice what your first reaction is, or even now, how we're talking about it. Where are you in this conversation of vulnerability?
And maybe it's fear. Maybe, that's something that people have just had really hurtful things happen to them when they were vulnerable, or maybe they could never be vulnerable as a child. It was a safe environment.
Yes. How do you prioritize that? How do you know when it's not safe? Right? So we have this wonderful biological system that has been created for us to know when something isn't safe.
Yes.
Right? The senses. We know if we smell smoke, what are we going to do? We're looking for it or we're running, right? If we hear a noise that is a beep, that is a roar, whatever it is that is off-putting, our body reacts to it in fear. We know we have to brace ourselves. I love that story that you tell about Layla.
Yeah, my daughter, we went to it's called Tiger World, and it is a rescue for big cats, right? So lions, tigers, panthers, all of these things. And we were making our way through there, and all of a sudden, the lions started roaring, and it caused all of the other cats to start doing this as well. And it was crazy, the sound and the vibrations that it created. And it was like coming off the trees, it was traveling onto the ground where it would shake your body. And my husband and I were standing there and we were just taking this in and loving it. We were like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And then I turned to see my children's reaction. And my daughter sat herself on the ground, covering her ears in the fetal position. And I just let her do it because that's her response. And afterwards, she said, Mommy, that really scared me. And I said, yeah, it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
In nature, if you hear that, you are supposed to feel fear. That's your body's response, knowing that something that is not safe, right, is close, is near.
Mm-hmm.
That is how you should respond in nature if you hear that. But Daddy and I knew there's, things here to keep you safe. They're in these cages, these habitats. They're not getting out. You can just know that those things are in place and you can enjoy it. But to her, she listened to her body's natural response to it. And so I affirmed her. I'm like, yeah, it's supposed to scare you. That's the point.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
you're supposed to know how big that is and how small you are.
Yeah, you're supposed to hear the beep. You're supposed to hear the siren, right?
Yeah.
It's even as something as small as you hear someone crying.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
right.
That's a response.
That's a response. And, when she says hear the beep, I called her one day after leaving Aldi because I freaked out. I walked into Aldi and I was like shopping, and this horrible beep started happening that was like throughout the whole place. I was the only one that was bothered by this. I was walking around going, what in the world is happening? Like I couldn't even shop. It was so loud. So I was like, I can't shop. I can't do this. And everybody else is acting fine. Start walking through the aisles. I'm like, am I crazy? Nobody's responding. And then I see that that machine that they pile things on to stock the shelves was malfunctioning, but they had to use it anyway. And so it was the backup beep. And so they were just using it because that's what they had. But my natural response was, oh my goodness, what is happening? I'm not understanding this. So it stressed me out a lot because noises really affect me. But I put my earplugs in. Yes, I carry earplugs. Let's not judge. But anyway, I put my earplugs in, finished my shopping, got in the car, was so stressed out. I called Meredith. I told her, I said, this is ridiculous. Everybody act like it wasn't happening. Nobody responded. I even looked at people like, do you not hear this? And Meredith said something very interesting to me. She goes, yeah, of course you responded. You're supposed to hear the beep. There's a reason the beep is there. It's so when they back up and they can't see someone that they respond going, oh, there's a beep. Let me move. Mm-hmm. She's like, you're supposed to hear the beep. And so we use that a lot of times with our clients now.
Yes.
The roar is supposed to affect you that way. Mm-hmm. And you're supposed to hear the beep.
Absolutely.
Those things are supposed to happen. And if you're not affected by the roar, why? Do you know that there's protective measures, or have you been accustomed to an environment where the roar had to become normalized? Or, are you not hearing the beep? Are you ignoring these things that are supposed to keep you safe? Like, what's going on? And so in that, vulnerability plays a part. Mm-hmm. When can you be vulnerable? Are these things a factor?
Yes, absolutely. I think your illustrations, your stories are so wonderful for us to hold in our minds, because just pay attention to yourself now when you're listening to this. If there is something in your life right now that is a beep, that is a roar, and you're ignoring it, So just think about that. It could be a person, it could be a place, it could be many different things. You know, when you pay attention. That is a big part of the work that I do, the somatic work of sitting with your stuff, paying attention, knowing how your body is responding to something, a situation, a person, a feel. Because if we don't do that, then we're not preparing ourselves for these moments of vulnerability. We're not preparing ourselves for the time when we really do need to say, okay, that's not safe.
Right.
Right. We're not. So I'm not going to walk in a forest dark, in the dark of night when I've never been there before. But if I live down the path in that forest, I know it. Right. I know that if I hear, I know it. I know which way that I'm going. I am prepared with my bear spray. I'm prepared with whatever I need in order to get to another safe place, if that makes sense. So how we learn when we can step into a conversation with someone and we can step into a physical place is very much paying attention to our instincts, paying attention to our bodies. We have a gut reaction for a reason.
Yep.
How many times have you guys said, oh man, I should have just listened to my gut? That is something I think that I've said multiple times. Well, what does that mean? It means listen to your gut. Yeah. It is an instinct. Pause. Of just take it in. It's information. Our bodies react and respond before our minds and our mouths. So if we are just skipping over that, we are putting ourselves out there to kind of be seen, be heard, be used in any way someone else would like to interpret it. Moving on to the application of this, right? We're supposed to have these responses. Mm-hmm. Our bodies tell us, our guts tell us we are instinctual for a reason. So vulnerability is not fishing for praise or proof, right? It's not fishing for what we've said, the validation. So that doesn't mean, however, to not be vulnerable because we're not getting the affirmation.
Right.
So how do you see this? Being vulnerable with your own internal affirmation, it's something that you need to share. Like there are times, so many times that we need to share something with somebody that we love or somebody at work, or just it needs to be said for so many different reasons. And it can be very vulnerable because, again, it's courageous. We don't know how it's going to land. Mm-hmm. When have you seen that in clients or maybe in your own world? I
usually am not a risk taker when it comes to vulnerability. I'm not. I
have
like 3 people that I'm vulnerable with.
But to your point, that's
my choice.
That's
right?
your choice, yeah. And that's important because you know them.
Yeah.
You know how we're going to respond to you.
Yeah.
Like we've created that trust and confidence over time, right? And
right.
I think that's a wonderful thing to say.
Yeah.
Some of us might have 3. Some of us might have 10.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. More. And there's times I have more. I actually do have more than 3 people. I have people that sit at my table. I use that metaphor a lot, that I can share certain areas of my life with. And so anyway, but I was never a person to really put myself out there. And so I started dating who is my husband now, my beautiful, beautiful, wonderful husband. He is wonderful. He's wonderful. So I remember we were about 3 months into our relationship and we decided to go camping, and we were camping. And I remember I could just tell by the way he looked at me that he loved me. And I was like, I mean, I'm pretty good at this kind of stuff. Like I can figure things out like that. I'm pretty intuitive. So I remember saying, I was taking a risk here, but I remember looking at him in the eyes and saying, I am in love with you. I love you. The silence that came after that, the pause, I was like, oh, I thought I had it in the bag. I felt that bag burn. And he just looked at me and he goes, And it was silent and silent. And he goes, I just want you to know. And I was like, here it comes. I'm going to be just denied. But I had to put it out there. I felt like it was the right time. I knew he was safe. And he did say, you know, I don't want you to think I'm saying this because you said it to me, but I do love you. And so it ended up being really great. But because of the person he is and because of his integrity and his character, I knew that even if he didn't love me, it wouldn't be used against me. Right. But I had to be okay with being rejected. Even if he was kind about the rejection, it's still rejection.
Yeah.
So I'm not one to really do that, but I was like, I got to do this, even if it doesn't land the way that I want.
Yeah, because you were at the point in your relationship where it needed to move forward. And this was important to say for it to grow.
Yes.
And move in the place that you really wanted. You were very clear about that. Yeah. But this is a moment where vulnerability matters.
Yes.
Absolutely. You had...
And necessary.
It's necessary.
It was necessary.
It was necessary. So this is a wonderful example too of, we've talked a lot about audience, the timing of this. If you did this their second week in, it would probably land a little bit different.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So what I appreciate about this story is that you talk about your audience. You knew him. Mm-hmm. You were observing, you were experiencing, you were paying attention. Yeah. You continue to create safe moments with the two of you.
True.
So you knew by paying attention to him, right, that it was probably going to be received, but you didn't really know still. Like you said, it could be rejected. So that's one. Your delivery of it was very much done in, this is how I feel. Yeah. Matter of fact, compassionate, loving way, right? And also the timing of it. You chose a time that was very special to both of you. You love being outdoors. It was just the two of you. You had a lot there that really brought you together. So it landed well.
Yeah.
This is what we talk to couples about when we're looking at the communication patterns. Mm. It really matters. Those three things: to whom you're speaking, how you're delivering it, and when you deliver information. This is when you get your greatest form of discernment, when you can take all of those aspects together, right? Yeah. Then we are in a place of, let's be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because I knew even if he didn't love me, because of our pattern, like you said, because of his pattern and the way he was towards me, it would still be something very sacred to him. Mm-hmm. Even if he didn't feel the same way, he would still be very respectful and caring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about timing and vulnerability. Many times we hear, oh man, maybe that wasn't the right time to do it. Mm. It could have been received, right? It wasn't even necessarily who your audience was at that time. It was just the timing of it.
Yeah.
It can be something simple too, of I haven't eaten, I haven't slept.
They're not a morning person.
Right. All of those things. Mm-hmm. When we think of vulnerability, I continue to go back to instinct, and I think about animals a lot. Of if an animal is hungry, right? If it hasn't slept, if it it's going to respond a little bit differently to you than if it had all of its comfort.
Right.
Right. So in a relationship, we really need to know and observe when the person is in their best space. Mm-hmm. That may not be a perfect space, because I don't really think that exists.
Right.
But when's the best space and time? And how do we judge that? How do we discern that in those moments? Mm. It could just be by knowing personality. They're not a morning person, right?
Yeah. And, it makes me think of, like, for instance, a dog's natural instinct, usually when they're not feeling good, is to not eat. They naturally fast. Mm. And as someone who's a dog person, that always makes me nervous that they're not eating, because I know they don't feel good. So I try to give them something rich, or try to I'm like, don't you want to eat something? Because I'm also dealing with PTSD from other dogs who have passed. Like, oh no, they didn't, they stopped eating. And, I'm trying to force them to eat it just so I feel better. Mm-hmm. But they naturally know I need to fast to feel better. Mm-hmm. And so I'm kind of pushing it.
Right.
And it's interesting to me that I'm trying to force my anxiety onto them of, oh no, when a dog stops eating, they're not feeling good, but I want them to prove to me that they're okay and they're not going to die on me. So I'm trying to push food onto them, but they know naturally, instinctually that they need to fast.
Yeah.
And so they'll skip a meal or two. But I find myself pushing my agenda on them when they're not ready.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So again, like, the timing of it,
Right.
If they're not ready. And I also love this, that you've said they knew what they needed.
Yep.
But you were deciding for them what
From
you
fear.
thought they needed.
Yes.
Because of fear.
Because of fear.
Exactly. And so what happens often is the relationship and this dynamic in this time, we need to talk about this right now.
Right.
We have to talk about it right now because I'm in a place of fear. If we don't talk about it right now, then we'll never talk about it. It will never get resolved.
Yeah.
This is a thing.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have that chase of, okay, I'm getting too close. I'm fighting. I'm talking. The other person just keeps going further and further away. They can't get far enough away. So we have to recognize that dynamic and what's going on there. Now, if this dynamic continues, the problem that we're solving together is this dynamic is continuing. Why? Let's look at it from a timing point of view.
Yeah.
Also, let's check in. Was it a stressful day? Are you running at 20%?
Right.
Did something happen on the way home? Did you talk to your mom and she told you another story about your brother that was really sad? Right. We have got to acknowledge who the person is. Absolutely. Our audience. We've got to acknowledge the time, and we have to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
This is maybe a pattern of this, but let's figure it out of the timing.
Right. Because a lot of times when we're ready to be vulnerable, someone isn't ready for us to be vulnerable with them. And also, sometimes our motivation to be vulnerable is to get the other person to be vulnerable with us. And so that motivation, so that timing is just off because they're not there, right? I'm force feeding my dog who's saying, I'm not there. Like, back off. And I think that we do that. I'm going to be vulnerable when I'm ready. Yes. And so I expect you to be ready as well. And maybe they don't necessarily want that connection at that time. And so timing is huge.
It is huge. And which brings it to also another major shift that we talk about with clients. Why don't we just ask the question in the moment, do you want me to just listen? Or are we solving a problem together? Or do you want my input?
Yeah.
What is it? How do we listen? You have to have that active audience of listening and taking in what you have to say, even though you may not agree. You have to have the acknowledgement that you may not agree, but it's not about who is right. And it's not about somebody agreeing with you. It's about somebody holding that space for you.
Right.
And you know that you can trust it.
Yeah.
This happens often, Wendolyn, with our clients, and we talk about wanting their approval from their parents. We talk about that a lot but I'm being vulnerable. I'm sharing with them how my childhood is and how you hurt me. Right. And we don't get very far sometimes because that person, yes, the audience, the timing of now they're 70, you're 50, whatever it is. And it's not going to land.
Right. You're asking the paraplegic to walk sometimes.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you are. And sometimes you have to wonder, is this something that I need to share? Is this something that I just need to work on within myself?
Right. Yeah.
I do love that example that you share with us so often about asking the paraplegic to walk.
Yeah. And I use it for all kinds of relationships. It can be a business relationship, marital, partners, mom and dad, brother, sister, whatever, where they're saying, I'm giving this piece of me to this person. And they're not responding in a way that enhances our relationship or solves the problem or whatever it is. And I've dealt with people who are married to narcissists or sociopaths. They're trying to argue their point or become vulnerable with this person and move to the next level. And I'm saying this person does not have the ability to get there. You are forcing them. You want to solve this or get to this certain place, and they're not there. Or they don't want to be there. They don't want to grow. They don't want to have that with you. And so what you are asking, you've got to manage your expectations. You have unreasonable expectations walking into this.
Yeah.
You are asking the paraplegic to walk. And it's not fair to them. And it's not fair to you.
Absolutely. So let's go back to, we want our vulnerability to move something forward.
Right.
It could be a relationship with self. It could be a relationship with that person. It could be a relationship with staying at my job or leaving my job, or even sometimes my physical place. I might need to move. It's all about relationship, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm moving something forward, I'm taking that risk of making a decision. So how do we know when it is time to move and to progress and to create that bridge? It's not always the vulnerability of relationship. It's sometimes these big life decisions that we need to make. I'm sure you guys have been in these moments where you've had to make big decisions about health, about your job, moving. You make these big decisions that it's so uncertain. So when you think about Naked and Afraid, and you think about that show, right?
Yeah.
Who would you want to come with you on this adventure? Who would be that person that feels safe? Who would keep you safe physically?
Yeah.
Or keep each other safe physically, emotionally, all the things going through it, that you're going to have moments of frustration. You're going to have moments of being really emotional. You're going to have moments of glee, you know, like we did this thing, and you want someone to join you in that. It's not always the sadness or the frustrations that we want to share. It's sometimes even celebration.
Yeah.
It's sometimes celebration and not knowing how someone will join us in that as well. Like, I want to share this. I got this new job, but maybe it's difficult for us to share it because we're making more money than that person. You know, they just lost their job, but we don't want to dim our light. You know, we don't want to dim our experience because, again, we don't know how it's going to land. So this is the discernment piece, Wendolyn, I think, that we talk about, and we're not always going to get it right. These are just things for us to consider. So asking ourselves these questions of, who is my audience? Am I really being realistic about who this person is?
Yeah.
Am I asking a paraplegic to walk?
Right.
Am I fully prepared to go into this knowing that I may not get the response that I would like?
Yeah.
What is the purpose of sharing this? Does it move my relationship with myself forward? Does it move our relationship forward? There's a lot to consider. As we practice this, though, as we practice this lens, it gets a lot easier and it becomes a default.
Yeah.
The timing issue, I think we can learn that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
If knowing our people, right? I'm not going to talk to my boss in a really busy day or a day that we know that we've lost millions of dollars,
right? Yeah.
About a promotion or about a day off that I need, that I know that they really need me to be there, but I have to be, you know, there's a point in that where I think timing we can learn pretty easily.
Yeah.
The delivery part is also very important. There is a time and a place. We do have to know our person, but then the delivery is important.
Yeah.
In discernment. How many times have I been in a situation where I am the person that people do rely on to say the thing that nobody else wants to say?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. I've gotten in trouble with that many times.
Yeah.
It might be the thing that everyone needs to hear. And I'm not saying it's just because I think that it was. It's typically people are coming to me with the same thing, and they're coming to me, and I'm not the person who can do anything about it. But then I get to a level of frustration, and I just maybe blurt it out. My delivery isn't great.
Right.
So it doesn't land. Right. So delivery is key also in terms of discernment if we really want to be heard and seen.
Yeah.
That I do think that we can keep ourselves accountable. You know, we can keep ourselves accountable pretty easily, I think, with delivery.
Yeah.
I don't think we have to really rely on somebody else at all. Right?
Exactly.
And that degree of vulnerability of, I'm going to call myself out. You know what?
Right.
I'm going to try that again.
Yeah.
Let me try that again. That didn't come out the way that I wanted it to come out.
Yeah.
So you might have a reaction to your delivery immediately. And that's when you need to realize that you may have just played with somebody else's vulnerability. They weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
And you might need to say, okay, wait, let me try that again.
Absolutely. Delivery is so important in a marriage. I tell people this and they're in complete shock. I tell them, I said, my husband has never said an unkind thing to me, ever. He has never called me a name. He has never said an unkind thing to me. Well, one time he did say I had old lady hands, but other than that, he's like, why do you keep bringing that up? I'm like, because you said it. Anyway, but that doesn't mean that his delivery or my delivery, and I've never said an unkind word to him, but that doesn't mean our delivery hasn't been off at times.
Yeah.
So and let me make that clear, because we've had to come back and go, you know what? I didn't say that the best, or I didn't express that the best, or maybe, my tone was a little off. And so we have to come back and rectify it. So there's a difference there, right? So knowing someone is not safe because of insults or whatever it is, but then seeing somebody who their delivery, they're recognizing it and coming back, right?
Yeah. All of these things we're talking about, especially delivery here, can be the difference between connection and regret.
Yes.
That's how I see it, because there's a piece of knowing your audience, right? I'm thankful that I have friends who know that I never would want to hurt anybody purposely. I sometimes am in the middle of a thought, right? I could be really hot. There are things that there are many other factors that might have an impact on my delivery. So what is my degree of vulnerability there? It is saying I'm sorry. That is vulnerable.
It's so vulnerable. What did Layla say? She's embarrassed when she has to say sorry.
Yeah.
And I said, well, because you're supposed to be. There's a vulnerability there.
Yes, that this really is making me think about saying I'm sorry, and how many times I hear this in stories, particularly with couples in romantic relationships, where they will say about one partner or the other, I've never really heard them say I'm sorry. That's surprising to me.
Yeah, it's really heartbreaking. Yeah, when I hear that.
But it's a thing. And you know what? Some of you out there might be in a situation like this, and it doesn't have to stay this way. This might be one of those discerning conversations you might want to have, because it's not possible as humans to just go through life perfectly and not do something wrong, or that we've hurt somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it definitely requires some self-reflection.
So here are some moments just to pay attention to in your own lives of, when I did say something that I felt really uncomfortable sharing, I felt understood. I felt comforted. I felt loved, even though I said the thing or I did the thing that I didn't really want to do that may not have made another person feel great. That is a person you want to keep in your life. That is how we start to trust. That's how we start to gain confidence in ourselves and knowing what our truth is, knowing who we are, which is so important. And that is what creates a wonderful degree of communication and discernment, especially with the people that we love. So what I've really appreciated about studying vulnerability and using it through all of these sessions over 12, 15 years, working especially with couples, I just want you to be vulnerable. I just want you to share this with me. I've been so vulnerable. I've said all of these things. Well, we've said them in a way not using this discernment that we're talking about, right? So what I have learned and what I have expressed and encouraged is to think about this. Vulnerability without discernment is just exposure.
I love that.
But vulnerability with discernment creates connection.
Yes. Yes, 100%. Yeah.
So we're always looking, right, to make that connection. This is what vulnerability is. It's all about belonging, right, in relationship, even to ourselves. So let's get to the 1% shift, Wendolyn. Throughout this podcast, I hope that you've had moments where you have recalled a situation that maybe you would like to revisit, or you may not be able to revisit it. So you might need to have forgiveness for self and think, okay, maybe I just won't do it like that next time. Maybe you felt a little challenged or even encouraged, I hope too, that you did handle a situation in a way that was appropriate for the moment and for you. Because the progress that you made in that vulnerability brought you to where you are right now. And you might like that place. So here are some 1% shifts. Before sharing something that is so close to you, right, that you've spent a lot of time on thinking about, working through, having emotions, ask 3 quick questions. Have I acknowledged who this person is? Have I acknowledged the place where I am in my life right now, or even in this moment? Am I choosing the best time to share in my vulnerability? Am I ready to take ownership and responsibility also in this? When I share it, I may not like what comes back at me. And that person could just be sharing their experience and actually doing it in a way that we can receive it. We just have to recognize that we may not like it and be prepared to receive something, a response. Because as we've learned, vulnerability is not validation, right? We're not going to necessarily have that validation. Wendolyn, you've shared some awesome illustrations for us, and I really love how you bring that into it, because some people do. There are a lot of people who do think in those visuals and they'll remember it. Many of our clients bring that back, right, into our conversations and discussions. So when we're talking about 1% shifts this week, what is something that our listeners can hold in their minds and their bodies as they're moving through the week?
Maybe just listen for the beep. Have you been ignoring it? Do you just carry on? Mm-hmm. Or are you recognizing that something's off?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that that's really important. If you are choosing to be vulnerable, mm-hmm. take the time to hear if there's a roar, if there's a beep. Mm-hmm. Your body should be responding to that as well. Mm-hmm. And if it's not, then you need to call Meredith and get some sessions. And get some sessions in.
Well, I also think about, I love that. Thank you. I also think about the time biologically in women's lives right now. If you're in your mid 40s, we've talked a lot about perimenopause, and mm-hmm. God bless us all. Mm-hmm. This is really important to think about in your relationships, especially with delivery, because the irritability is real and it really doesn't have anything to do with you, the other person. It's really us, right? And we're learning this. We are in a sensitive period of life right now. Mm-hmm. So I am really talking about this as a 1% shift for people in relationships, but mostly relationship with self and being patient with yourself.
Oh yeah, because I've told my husband, I'm at the point in my life where I'm not asking Jesus to take the wheel. I am literally grabbing the wheel and throwing it out the freaking window. I'm like, you know what, Jesus? I don't want anyone to have the wheel. Like, I'm very irrational. So yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So yes, all of these pieces do have to do with this vulnerability, even admitting where you are, right? Biologically, mm-hmm. developmentally in your life. Mm-hmm. I've heard that a lot lately among my clients, and just even in couples where I don't recognize her anymore. I don't recognize him anymore. Okay, well, it is time to get curious. And chances are what you're going through is something you really don't want to be going through. And you just have to bring it to the surface and work through it. And it's wonderful if you have a safe partner and place to work through that. So lots of ideas for 1% shifts this week. We would love to see you on our Facebook group, Simply 1%. We would love to hear what you're working through, sharing your 1%.
Also, we will be releasing our YouTube channel soon and our Instagram. Look at us, how fancy schmance. And our, what's the other one? Apple
TikTok.
Podcasts and TikTok, all of these things.
1% shifts, Wendolyn. We're not doing all at one time.
Listen,
I just had some heart palpitations there.
But just keep that in mind.
Okay, guys, we're really wrapping up now. We're all in this together, guys. We cannot wait to be with you next week, and have a good week.